So a lot of the comments we get talk about how this isn't what fighting in armor would look like. We're not hitting each other hard enough to go through armor, or that we are, or they'll even say that, you know, we're too slow because we're wearing armor, or that if we were wearing armor, we'd be slower. A lot of conflicting comments, a lot of misconceptions about what kind of fencing and fighting we are doing and what armor would be like. So what we're doing is called, in the German tradition at least, called Blousfesten, which means shirt fighting or shirt fencing. This would be done unarmed. More as like an honor kind of, or like a dueling sort of situation.
Maybe to the death. Maybe to the first blood. Maybe. The point is, you're just trying to
get the other
debilitate, at a minimum, at least debilitate the other person.
And it could be done in civilian defense as well. It would be the kind of thing that you would do if you were walking around and you had one of these swords and you were defending yourself. You're not walking around in tons of armor. You know, this could be done in leather armor as well. Like not that that did much. Like leather armor really didn't.
I don't know how predominant leather armor ever really was.
It's kind of one of those.
It's hard to say.
Kind of one of those things which, yeah, there was some out there, but its effectiveness is iffy.
Yeah.
It's not like you see in fantasy where they've got all the crazy stuff on.
Oh, don't get me started on the ugly, stitched together, patchy leather armor fantasy. Sorry.
Most of the time, people would have worn like gambesons, or like arming jacket kind of deals.
Brigandine, plate armor,
chainmail is another big one.
In some cultures, maybe like scale mail.
Scale mail. I know that the laminated, what was it,
lamellar?
Lamellar.
Yeah, that was like plates that are kind of layered over.
But then there was also the like Japanese armor, which was lacquered wood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So different things to stop different swords. To certain levels of effectiveness. But this, what we are doing is unarmored combat. What this is, this is just padding. This is literally, it's cloth. And I can move in it, it's not very heavy, I can go very fast in it with some hard shell padding.
Right, that's an interesting point, because if you and I were wearing normal clothes, you could probably severely injure or kill someone with a blunt sword without padding on.
Yeah.
A hit to your skull.
Done.
Hit to your chin, something
leg,
like
bleeding at least.
I could choke you out with it.
Doesn't
There's
take
a lot
much.
of nasty, or I could.
These swords, as most long swords, are somewhere between 2 and 3 pounds. They're not very heavy. Swords
moves really quick.
Swords weren't that heavy, but all of that is concentrated way out there. I mean, the balance point for this sword is a little bit further back.
Well, the center of percussion is probably
somewhere in there. So, but like these are blunted, but they still hurt a lot. So what this is to allow me to fence with my friend Matt without getting hurt or hurting him.
Right.
So this is not armor. It is just padding. I have hard shell padding here, on my elbow, knee, chin. And then I don't wear it, but you can wear a protector under this, a hard shell protector, and then our masks. So this is not armor.
Sometimes a gorget.
Yeah, a gorget.
Protector under the jacket.
What we are wearing is not armor, and it does not really impede our movement. I have full range of movement, and I'm not slowed down.
Well, and more importantly, when we fence, we're not treating it like armor.
No.
If that was like a 12 gauge steel mitten, it might crush your fingers a teeny bit, but you would be able to keep fighting.
Fighting just fine. And so when we get hit in the hand when we're fencing, we're assuming that it's skin. This is not here to ward off a blow and me to be like, Matt, you can hit me. It's there for me to be able to keep going after I do get hit.
Right, because if we didn't have these on every time we fence longsword, we would need like a month break.
A month break, if not just be done forever.
Or just up our knuckles completely.
I complete that.
Screw up our knuckles completely.
But the other thing, so that's the first misconception, is what we're doing. It is not armored combat. It is Blousfechten, unarmored combat. The second misconception is, what would armored combat look like? A lot of comments talking about how the hits that we're doing are not hard enough to go through armor. There is no strike like this that can go through steel armor. None.
To that point, not only that, but someone who could afford armor in the Middle Ages, that stuff was really expensive. And it was really good, and it was very thick, formed to their body.
Yeah.
And not only that, but they kept gaps to a minimum.
Yeah.
And then they had chainmail underneath, not the cheap chainmail you see that's just rings smushed together. They riveted each ring on the good stuff closed. And I've handled riveted chainmail, and it is like really good. And then under that, they would have something probably
like
even more padded
than this.
And then under
and
that,
it would come down to probably about here to cover all of this.
So what that results in is, even if somehow you cut into my elbow, so much absorption of all that stuff is happening. You are not going to, with a sword like this, I honestly, if I had authentic medieval armor with the full setup, I would let him swing at my chest full force with a sharp longsword.
You could just ignore things like that. The thing about that kind of armor, the thing about that kind of armor is it was for battlefield use, usually either given to a noble or like a professional soldier.
Their own.
Yeah, and they're basically, it's because they don't want to get killed. They're rich, they can afford it. There was like the forlorn hope, the people who were in heavy armor with the great swords that would go forward and try to take down pikemen and stuff like that.
And those guys I think wore lighter armor.
Yeah, they did, because they didn't have the really, really good stuff.
But they got paid double.
They got paid double, yeah. So like armored combat is 100% different. You'll see stuff in the manuals and these manuals about them using like half swording, trying to find, and it's almost always a thrust when it's half swording, trying to find these things to try and pierce through all of those different things. You'll also see stuff like this because this would mess you up, especially if it hits you in the head. This is like a can opener. It can go through that armor.
And the pommel
and
like a club.
Ringing the bell. And then you'll also see a lot of the times armored combat will be done with like halberds, because that has enough force to do something, or war picks, or maces.
Yeah, some of those like lucernes and halberds and partisans and stuff like that had like potato masher looking things on the front to put dents in your armor so that the next blow would catch even better.
And a lot of the times they wouldn't fence with the longsword and armor, they would have a shield.
It would be here.
Yeah, and they'd have a shield and something else.
Warhammers.
Yeah,
single-handed warhammers.
So armored combat,
pick on the other end.
Armored combat does not look like this.
No.
I would never use any of the techniques I'm using on Matt when we fenced in armored combat because they would be completely useless.
Yeah.
Another thing that people talk about is like armored combat is very slow. The armor wasn't that heavy. It was roughly about 35-ish pounds to 50 pounds, but it was distributed across your whole body.
It is heavy.
Heavy, but not.
But it's distributed, and it would lower your.
It
would lower your endurance a little bit.
Maybe
make you tired quicker, but also, you
don't have to be as fast anymore.
You
can just eat a hit.
Like you could, like if I'm a fully armored guy with a warhammer or a big weapon, and an infantryman with no armor is coming at me with a sharp sword, I would use my forearm as almost like a buckler or a shield, and just take it so that I could return the blow.
Exactly, and again, that's another thing that we talk about, right? So if he has all this armor on, he is fighting mostly unarmored opponents. He can just wade through them. A noble slaying peasants, right? He's not mostly fighting people in other suits of armor. You will see stuff like that in some of the manuals and stuff, but that's probably honor duels amongst nobles.
There would be armored fighting with maybe blunted weapons and stuff in some tournaments
and things like that. Again, nobles who have the money in a tournament, right?
And sometimes I think the armored guys from either side would encounter each other,
But it's not like that was the norm. The norm was soldiers on the ground with pikes.
And honestly, there's a group.
And bows.
I've watched some demos and studied a tiny bit with a nearby group that does a lot of armored stuff, and they have blunted.
Oh, you're talking about Reese and them?
Yeah. They have blunted rondel daggers right here.
Yeah.
Rondel daggers are made for one thing: stabbing real hard. And sometimes what they'll end up doing when they do this stuff is somebody will fall down or something. They just get on top of them and find a gap and just shove it.
Yeah, armored combat was mostly wrestling.
Yeah.
It was a lot of wrestling, a lot of trying to find an opening. It was not a lot of cutting and striking. So what you see in fantasy things, it's mostly fake. So with that said,
video games.
Do you feel comfortable doing some armored combat with this?
Yeah, we could try to use the rule set with just some half sorting maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, just let's not trick each other.
No, no tripping each other.
But we can show them what it looks like to try and find gaps.
What would try and find some gaps and stuff. We're gonna go light because like we said, this is not armor. It is soft and it does still.
I wouldn't try and stab you there anyway.
The other thing about the half sorting is you're reinforcing the tip here,
right?
So it's a lot stiffer. Because normally, can I pierce this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Normally, look at the flex I've got. This is a fairly stiff longsword, but that flex means it's not gonna hurt as much. Now if I'm here, that flex is gone.
Already,
the flex is gone.
It
so
basically
that's
means you're moving this.
Yeah.
Somewhat to here, and you have like a knife.
So we'll do a little bit of armored, quote unquote, armored fighting, and then a little bit of unarmored Blausfechten, which is what we normally do. We're gonna do a little bit of what armored combat would look like. Again, we're going soft because this is not armor. but we'll just give a couple examples. We're not going to do any of this. It's too dangerous. We're not going to do anything with the pommel. It's too dangerous. We do a little bit of half sorting. We're going to try and we're not actually going to trip each other because, again, we're not on padded floors, and I don't really want to hurt Matt. This isn't our specialty here, so we're not going to go too hard on it. We're just going to...
I've had a few lessons in Unarmored stuff.
Yeah.
It'll be accurate, but...
Accurate, but not full out.
Not expert.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Right.
Yeah.
That was just your face.
This is my face. It wouldn't have done anything.
Yeah, so I hit him in the face,
but
it wasn't in the eye slit.
No.
It was down here.
Yeah.
If he had an armored
face mask, he wouldn't have done anything.
Thing, it might have pushed his head back, but he would have been okay.
This is scary.
It is a little bit scary, but I'm not trying
If I can grab his sword, I'm fine because I've got that gauntlet on.
That's true.
So being able to wrap around and grab that.
There.
Yeah, he got under my face.
And you might have had my neck a couple times.
Yeah.
I couldn't really feel it. But my goal there was
to get up and underneath. Yeah.
Basically, on his armor, I want to stab him here, here, maybe. I'm not going to go for his groin because
I would have a cod piece.
that would actually hurt.
Oh yeah, don't do that, Matt.
It might be, well, but there's also
There's openings.
there's blood vessels in there.
Oh yeah.
Another thing that I don't want to do because it could actually hurt him is on some suits of armor there's a little bit of a weak point back
The back
here.
of the knee, yeah. And what I
here
normally
would be good to aim for.
Normally, if I was doing this, can you have your sword back up?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be trying to get in here to throw him.
Yep.
But again, because this is a not padded floor, we're not in real armor.
Also,
oh, the back. I did it once. I kind of swiped him this way, but I pulled it a bit.
But another thing I was going to say is, I know that these will end up flat, but if I drop this while he's throwing me and it teeters for a second like this and I fall on this, I might have to go to the hospital.
In real armor, we could get away with these things.
Yeah.
With what we're wearing now, we cannot.
Yeah.
If you want to donate to Seltzer Arts to get us real suits of armor, we'll do all the armor combat you want.
Maybe.
Might have done it. That might have gone into my gauntlet.
Maybe, yeah. Well, wait a minute. Are we
You went up in here. You got
sure. Gauntlets, what do they have on the inside?
They would have been open.
Leather?
If you hit the inside of my gauntlet, he hit the inside of my gauntlet, that would have
With
gotten
a thrust.
with a thrust, yeah.
If you have good thick leather and you grab someone's blade,
That's fine.
if they pull it out, it might get through.
But
I can hold on to it
Yeah.
pretty good with the leather.
But he thrust up and into my gauntlet. That was
Right.
enough.
I was
Let's do
aiming
one
for
more
like-
little pass, and we'll do some blast fast.
Okay. Oh, you got me in my neck.
I lost the tip.
So that's exhausting, by the way.
Yeah, that's really tough. It's a lot
Because
harder.
you're not just going like this and missing and then restarting. You get in close and
It's wrestling.
it's hard to remember because we usually do unarmored, but what I'm trying to keep in mind is that I can take any kind of edge contact here, here, here. I can take edge contact anywhere.
Doesn't matter. It's that
because
thrust I'm worried about. And
even
like,
if there's no plate there, you cannot get through chainmail with, I would argue, any kind of cut.
yeah.
But
And again, this is a. Go ahead, keep going.
But yeah, so pretty much you have to get to a vulnerable spot and give a good stab.
And again, this is not 100% what it would look like because I'm not comfortable hitting Matt with the pommel, the cross guard. I'm not comfortable throwing Matt in the situation that we are in. Hopefully in the future, we can give you a little bit more armored combat. We just kind of want to show you what it would be like if it was a really armored combat.
Oh yeah, if we were enemies, this would be nasty. Like
On the ground.
We would be jabbing this
in
into
the
each other's
eyes.
throats.
It's
I would
crazy.
be trying to like
Hook
make
my
him
legs,
fall
go
down,
out.
and then I'd be
Yep.
sliding him
Just
on
like
the
that.
ground, you know.
So let's go into some normal blast fest then, and we'll show you kind of
Unarmored.
unarmored combat. Ready?
Right.
You got me.
You got my thumb.
Not enough to stop you though.
Nah, probably not. Got my wrist.
I've been working on some of those twisty cuts.
Nice.
Yeah, that was enough. That was enough.
Okay.
Not enough. Oh, you lost your tip.
Tip came off.
Tip came off. Gotta tape those on.
Yeah.
I use these enough for other things. I don't like to tape the tips on. But it is a bit of a hazard.
It's weird how often it happens, even just from a blade pulling back on it.
I think you got my hand. Don't hurt that.
Yeah, you got my thumb. That would have cut my thumb off.
See the difference of this? It's very much, we're very much not worried about any of this.
Right, so if we're doing armored stuff and we get in a bind, and I'm like pushing with the edge
I don't
here,
care.
he's not going to feel it. It's not going to do anything to him.
There are some moves where people will close distance and do the wrestling unarmored, but I find that I don't feel comfortable. I like having the distance and time to react.
I mean, for my part, I'll openly admit I do this because of the sword play.
Yeah.
I'm not that interested in the wrestling.
I am interested in the wrestling, but
it's
again,
cool. I just don't.
There's a risk-reward thing with the wrestling. I'm not doing this at the super high level.
Right.
I want to do this with you for fun. I don't
Sure.
want us to get injured.
Yeah.
And the wrestling and going to the ground just brings a level of injury with it that I'm not really prepared to embark in.
Sure. Good touch to the arm.
Did I get that hand there?
Oh,
Is it
I
cross
didn't
guard?
feel it.
Okay.
You might have, but I didn't feel it. Sorry.
It's okay. Nah, you got that. Sorry.
Okay.
You got that thrust. Is that my hand or guard?
I don't know. I feel like it's probably guard.
Okay.
Good cut to the wrist.
But you can see, right? The amount of force that we need for this is much less because, like we said before, this is all unarmored. So that slight cut to that is enough.
And it was here.
Yeah.
It would have probably, it would have hurt a ton and made me start bleeding.
Yeah.
Made it hard for me to use this hand
Yeah.
to hold back.
If you'll notice, most of the cuts that we're landing are to the arms, of the thrusts and cut, because that is the way to end the fight, right? If my opponent can't use his sword, it doesn't matter about pain endurance or adrenaline. At that point, if I mess up the structure of his arm, he's not fighting anymore.
Or I'm fighting way less.
Way less, and it only takes,
That's hard to, we were just assuming that those are touches
Yeah.
because we have no idea what it would be like to try and hold this with a severed muscle right
Yeah, and here's the other thing. One of the things that we get some comments about is like, you look slow. We're shooting this in a very wide angle lens so that we can get everything.
I'm 40.
We're not, well, it's not even that. We're doing this pretty fast, but we're not speeding up our footage. A lot of the times what the public is used to is choreographed fights where the next guy knows the next move, and they're using either aluminum or they're using CGI. The Witcher, they didn't even use real swords. They had like handles with sticks that they CGI'd.
They had half blades.
Yeah, you have to remember that this is the speed that it would have been done at, and the camera is adding some time to it. So this is pretty fast.
Well, and sometimes smoothness is what you need instead of just pure speed.
I don't need to be as fast as I can. I need to peek in. That's all.
Yeah.
But
Flat, you're right. I wasn't ready for that one.
trying to do these pushy things is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. These guards are fun because I can do some of this rolling, but they're very open.
Yeah.
So, I've mostly trained in this forward style, but I've been trying a lot of these new things. They're not new. I've just been exploring it more recently, and they're fun. The thing I don't like about it is how open you are at the beginning. If I miss that first, so if he's coming in with that thrust, if I miss this first one, it's over. That's what's so dangerous about the thrust, because if he gets hit here, he has things he can go back, he can defend. So if he does that, he can defend the next one. If I miss here,
I can disengage.
I disengage and stuff. Not saying it's less useful, it's just hard.
I could close distance.
Yeah.
So if you miss that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, with my hand, good job. Nope, he blocked enough of that.
Yeah, I think you might have pushed my own sword down in my head.
I saw it. I didn't make direct contact.
Okay.
This has been some fun. Okay, honestly, these are some really fun exchanges.
Yeah, that was a good one.
No one got hit, but it was really fun. This one's split.
Oh, well, we can still tape it.
I got
have
more.
some electrical
Oh, you have some tape?
I have some electrical tape.
And if it happens again, we'll do it.
We could put it around the thing and down onto the
Yeah.
blade.
I need to take these out of the way.
Sure.
Let's go again.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
I think that was your
I think
hand.
that was my finger, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little bit light, but since it was one of my fingers,
I pulled a little bit.
it doesn't take much. Yeah, and sometimes we
So, and
we've
that's
said
the
this
thing.
in other videos, but we will pull things a little bit.
Yeah, it's no fun hitting your friend as hard as you can.
No.
If I know that I have the hit and I'm about here, I can let it relax a little bit
Yeah.
because there's no need for me to get mad bruise.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, like, if we were doing this on some super high competitive level, I probably wouldn't pull it, but I don't have any intention of doing that. I'm more interested in the technique and the skill and fencing with my buddy.
I wouldn't call it high level though.
But
I would call it like a different level.
it is. That's the other thing.
Tournament fencing is a different
We've
level.
talked about this, right? Tournament fencing is a sport. It has
Sorry.
rules, and with rules come workarounds. And we're not saying that it's not cool and it's not valid. We're just saying what we do is a little bit different.
Right.
You couldn't have this level of communication with your partner in a tournament if you're trying to win. If we fence with very little ego here, I can be like, no, Matt, that was flat. Or I can be like, you hit me. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, the few tournaments I've been to, I do that anyway.
Yeah.
To the directors.
Yeah. How do they like that?
One guy I had a problem with, but usually it's fine.
We've over enough on that, I think.
Was
Maybe.
it straight though?
I don't know. I felt it. I don't know. I couldn't see where it was.
It might have been a little flat. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, that got me.
Is it hard enough?
I
I felt
pulled
like
my
it wasn't
hair,
very
so
hard.
okay, sure.
That's another thing. When you hit with enough strength, you feel a certain type of vibration feedback.
This is a minute. This is fun.
Yeah, it is.
Not enough.
Nope.
Would that have stopped you? Would all that digging in have stopped you?
Where was it?
Well, I've got a lot of pressure and it pulls from here.
It might have cut my scalp or my ear.
How much
I
would it
don't
have
know.
stopped you though? You
I
got
didn't
that
really do
kind of.
anything. I tried to deliver a blow, but I ended up holding the sword wrong.
I had so what happened was I got this bind,
Right.
and I was able to fish over to here,
Uh-huh.
but I wasn't able to use any force to it, so I basically placed it. But I placed it with a flat and I drug it across. I would have gotten blood, wouldn't have stopped the
Might
fight.
have cut my scalp open.
Wouldn't have stopped the fight.
I
Not
would have been bleeding pretty profusely.
But it was on the back of your head, so it wouldn't have been
That's true.
much.
That's true.
Yeah, Russ. You good?
Yeah. Just tired. Good cut to the arm.
That was your stomach.
It might have been my stomach and my arm. I felt it mostly in my arm.
Yeah, I missed that totally.
It's all right.
You stuck that in,
I
yeah.
was really focused on waiting for a perfect moment.
Yep, yep. I floundered around trying to catch something that didn't come. Yeah.
I was being a little risky by not having the weapon too far forward.
Well, he also used distance really well because my first attack, I used a shortened reach and my distance was wrong, and then he knew I couldn't get and he waited until I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think without realizing I was doing it.
That's the fun part, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was enough of a thrust to my wrist.
Ah, man.
You
Thought I
missed
had
it.
that one. Thought I
You
had that
kind
fast.
of, I think you had a little bit of
No,
contact.
I didn't have it.
No.
I committed too hard to one attack and didn't defend myself once it finished.
Right.
That was, I think I got your hand.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my cross guard was off.
I saw it make contact.
No, that's cool. Just these shells protect a lot,
Yeah.
so don't always feel it. It was through your steel.
I felt it.
I'll let you decide if it was hard enough to cut. I'm leaning towards no, but
First blood. I don't think it would have debilitated me,
No.
but it would have bled.
okay.
I'll give you that. Fair enough. Oh man, that was beautiful. So I did a beat, but it wasn't hard enough to displace his sword. He deceived, and I came in for this. He's longer reach than me, so I stopped
You would not have
and
finished that
totally
cut.
missed. Totally
You
missed.
might have dropped the sword, but it probably would have gone to the
Well,
floor.
you actually made a bit of a gamble there because had it been not on my arm, had it been my chest, I would have been able to finish that.
Yeah.
But he got me in the arm,
Well-
which pulled my whole arm to the wrong side and made me miss
What I
entirely.
should have done was do that
And then parry as
while
well,
doing
yeah.
this.
Yeah. But he did it. That was a beautiful touch.
Okay, a few more. Keep giving me some water.
Okay. Flat on mine.
Was it flat? Okay.
Yours scraped around in there.
Yeah. Not clean enough.
Oh. Yeah.
I stuck the point in his
Stuck the
wrist.
point right in my arm. Okay, one more.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought I got you in there, I didn't.
You.
So as you can see, there's a big difference between armored and unarmored combat. And again, we couldn't do full armored combat because we don't actually have armor. We could just give you a kind of a glimpse into what it would have kind of looked like. There are other people who do a lot more accurate armored combat, just because they own suits of armor. Again, if any of you out there want to buy Sellsword Arts, some armor will 100% do a ton of armor videos. I'm not kidding. I want armor. Thick. Yeah. What? At least
2 C's.
12 gauge.
Probably
16?
12 gauge.
16?
Gauge is stupid. Gauge is
It goes up. I know,
a
but
small
16, no, I'm
number
saying,
is
would
thick.
16 be enough?
Not really.
12 gauge. 12 gauge steel armor is the minimum we'll take.
Probably.
But yeah, so you could see the difference, right? When we were in armor, we were trying to get in, and we could ignore literally all of this. We didn't do the face pummels just because we didn't
that
feel
would
comfortable.
work.
That would work.
That would
but
concuss us
we were
probably.
trying to get here,
Up in
there,
the
here, and we didn't do any of the throwing
No.
either, just because we couldn't.
Yeah.
Not on this floor.
Elbow
And again,
would be valid, I think.
we have to stress this, that we are doing this as friends in a way that we do not want to hurt each other. So we are always holding back a little bit.
Yeah.
With the fencing, not so much. We can pull a little bit, but I mean, that's it. I'm willing to take
Not
that.
trying to
yeah.
improve it.
I am willing to take that little bit of historical accuracy
Yeah.
in order to be able to do my sport, my hobby, my thing over and over again with my friends. But beyond that, once we went into Blousfechten, shirt fencing, there was a lot more blade work, right? Because unarmored, even blunt, these things would, a cut to the wrist at the power I was doing would break his wrist.
So
With a blade, it would cut into the bone.
I was in a rapier tournament once, and they weren't requiring leg protection, and I kind of didn't care. I just had normal pants on. And the rapier is thinner than this, but
Yeah.
it's steel blade blunted. I took a cut right in my shin from somebody. I was able to keep fighting, but I could tell something was wrong. It basically went through all the skin. It was blunt through my pants, skin. I had to go get
Stitches?
like glued up, and
Ooh, yeah.
I think I still have a scar.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't take much.
it doesn't take
And
much.
imagine that now with a blade. And this is heavier than that, and it's got more leverage behind it. Like the rapier is not, it is a cutting weapon.
Mhm.
It is not mostly a cutting weapon. It is mostly a thrusting weapon
Yes.
with the ability to cut effectively. This is a cut and thrust weapon with the ability to effectively cut and thrust with a lot of power. So this hitting you anywhere with any bit of power, the end.
It would
if you have
hurt.
armor,
I mean,
yeah.
I think if you hit me without the padded fencing gear, maybe in the bicep or something, it might not do real lasting damage.
It hurt.
But even just what I just did a little bit
Yeah,
on
it
my
doesn't feel
muscle,
good.
it hurt a lot.
We remember back in the old days when we didn't have these padded fencing
Collarbones.
jackets. Yeah, we used to fence longsword. We had the Hanwei longsword and
Hand and a half, yeah.
the hand and a half. And
Maybe it was the Hanwei Tinker.
you had the tinker, I had the other one.
Yeah.
My tinker's getting chewed up. I don't know what's up with it. But anyway, we had those, and we didn't have the padded fencing jackets yet. We just had
And we didn't have
heavy
the gloves
duty
either.
canvas. We just had padded gloves. I broke some fingers at least a couple times. This
Sorry,
elbow
man.
definitely got shaped. It wasn't you.
Oh, I have a different shaped elbow.
Yeah,
too.
different shaped elbow because that's what we had to work with, and I'm never gonna go back. So, but yeah, unarmored combat was very different, and for the misconceptions that we get about like what are we doing versus what would armored combat be? What we don't in any of our videos that you've seen so far do armored combat. This is not armor. This is protective gear that allows us to do our hobby
with
safely.
some degree of realistic force and speed.
Yes. Yeah, we can. Like 85 to 90%. What it would be, somewhere in that range. Like like 10 to 15% holding back, just because we're friends and we're not gonna throw each other across the room. But it's pretty close to how it would have been. So yeah.
Trying to hit you.
Yeah, no, we're trying to hit, and the other thing is we're trying to avoid getting hit, because even with this armor, it doesn't feel good.
Well, and to me, that's, maybe I've said this in other videos, I'll try to keep it quick, but I think that's what makes quote-unquote fencing different.
Yeah.
You know, you can train someone to hit really hard with a weapon, and there is a lot to be said for that. You can train someone on edge alignment, where to strike properly, how to hit. But what sets fencing apart historically, I think, is that it has an added element of self-preservation.
Offense and defense,
Yes, self-preservation.
And that's the thing that we go for here. And I would say that something that Olympic fencing and tournament fencing kind of suffer from is that mentality of I can eat a hit sometimes, if I get the hit first.
Sure, especially with like Olympic sports saber.
Yeah, sports saber.
It's kind of rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. And so like that, when you watch something like Olympic, I think that HEMA tournament, they don't like getting hit. So that's pretty.
No, they have some rule sets, I think, that try to discourage people from being too risky.
Yeah.
You have to
But
blow
that's
stuff
the thing
out.
that I know. Like, that's the thing about HEMA. It is a sport, and it is still a developing sport. So the rules are not set. There'll be different rules, different places.
Sure. Which I think is good, actually.
It is. I think that's cool. We're not getting down on HEMA tournament fencing. I mean, like, it's not my thing, but you know, do you.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I just wouldn't call it a one-to-one.
I just want people to be honest about
Yeah,
what they're
yeah,
doing.
exactly. I would not call it a one-to-one comparison to
Sure.
medieval swordsmanship. It's a sport. which
And
is
another
fun.
aspect of that is, you know, we don't live in a world where people fight with swords.
No, yeah.
And we have no idea what psychologically it would feel like.
Yeah,
And we don't want to know.
No, we don't.
Because that would be terrifying.
Yeah, this is not, and this is another thing. We get this all the time, right? Oh, why would you train with swords and guns are around? Because it's fun. I'm not doing.
Would you want us to shoot each other with Nerf guns or something?
We're not doing this to defend ourselves.
Airsoft is pretty cool.
Yeah. We are not doing this to defend ourselves. We are not doing this as a skill that we're going to use. We're doing this because we're big dumb nerds.
Now, having said that,
and we watch too many fantasy videos, and we want to do it for real.
Doing fencing can keep you in pretty good shape.
It can.
It can give you solid footwork.
It can.
That might apply to.
And as a practitioner of other martial arts, this translates one-to-one. So
There
for
are
some
weird
of the
commonalities, too.
so for some of the more practical stuff like stick fighting, Kali stick, and other things, that's a really really practical skill because it's something you can carry around. This helps. 100% this helps, and crosses over to boxing, crosses over to all kinds of stuff, really interesting stuff. So we kind of got off track there, but that is armored versus unarmored combat. Glad to be back fencing again. It's been too long.
So, quick little word about video games. I think video games are the main reason people think that a big enough sword or whatever can work against armor.
Yeah.
And that's just because when you're making a video game, everything is numbers, and you have to find ways to give people variation in what they're doing. So you say bigger swords do more damage against armor.
Yep.
Which, maybe in real life, a big, huge, honking, wide sword might bring your head a little more.
harder.
Maybe.
Steel.
Why do that if you've got a nice long sword with a point? Just use the point.
Steel cannot cut through other steel when wielded by a person.
No, your grandpa did not see someone cut through a machine gun with a katana. Sorry, that's an urban legend that pops up.
Is it? Okay.
Yep.
But the point is that no matter how much force you as a person can generate, you might crush, but you will not cut through steel with a sword.
But then why use a sword for crushing?
There
are crushing weapons.
Use a hammer.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing though. They didn't fight sword versus sword in armor
unless they lost their main
weapon, or it was a tournament, or it was
wearable.
unless it was a tournament or some special situation. Usually, it was a shield and a bludgeoning implement of some sort, or a halberd, or something they could.
Or no shield and a big, huge, long, like hammer with a pike on the back, or a spike.
Yeah, halberd
and a
or
spike on
pick.
the tip.
Yeah. Oh
you could use that as a hammer with a beak, or a spear.
Just look up medieval pole weapons, and you'll understand what we're talking about.
Awesome.
If you want to talk about armored combat, you look up medieval pole weapons, medieval pole arms. That is what they would use in armor. That was their main thing, because you get to keep away from the other person, and you get to kill them.
You can make more of them too, because most of it's
most of it's wood. It's also really effective cost-wise.
It doesn't require all the weird fancy
These
metallurgy.
are really hard to make.
Even today, they're hard to make.
They're hard to make.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yes, armored versus unarmored combat, dispelling the myths of swords cutting through armor, and just having some fun fencing. Thanks for being back with us. What was it? If you smash the
half sword the like button.
Half sword the like button.
And then death's more
schlag
the
the subscribe
button. Yeah. Sure.
I'm so sorry.